Yeah, that sounds like Mario Kart.
Hi guys, and welcome to the second episode of the Let's Watch Horror podcast. You're here with me, Ruby, my very good friend Manny.
All right, babies.
And my very, very good friend Rob.
Hey everybody.
This is episode 2, and we literally just finished watching the film Hereditary, which came out this year, so it's very fresh.
They are making good horror this year.
They are. They're doing well so far.
They really are.
Say so far, it's bloody November now.
Don't.
There's still a couple of months left.
Yeah. So in the interests of complete transparency, I guess, we've all seen this film before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rob and I saw it at the cinema, lucky enough to catch it actually at the cinema. And I believe you saw it at home, Manny.
Yeah.
Not long after it came out. So this wasn't the first viewing for any of us.
No.
Which actually, I think, gave us a very interesting perspective on it, and a much needed perspective.
I would go so far as to say I think this film requires more than one viewing. I think so, in order to sort of get everything that the narrative and everything within the film. I think you really do need to watch it more than once. I'm so glad I did, and in Blu-ray quality, it was fantastic to get all those little details.
That's something I thought when we were watching this the second time round, is I realised that you'll never ever get the same feeling that you had from watching it the first time, because there's so much that you don't pay attention or don't realise from the first watch around.
Yeah.
And when we watched it again, you're thinking, oh, everything means something in this film. And especially on the second time round that you notice it.
So many little seeds are planted throughout, the set design and everything. The second watch of this film was a real eye opener. I'd recommend anybody who's only watched this once to go back and watch it again. But I think it's very important to say right now. Spoilers. I think anyone who's seen this film will understand.
That is.
There's not going to be a section where we don't talk about spoilers, because talking about this film without going into spoilers is completely impossible.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched this film, maybe pause, watch it, and listen again.
But I was going to say before you mentioned that, you were saying about how everything means something in this film. That's definitely true. But what's also really interesting about it is that it makes you quite paranoid of that fact. So I think to a certain extent, all of us started probably reading too much into it.
Maybe.
And seeing something in everything, which is great because it's meant to make you feel that sort of level of paranoia of what does that mean and where is that going to go.
Yeah, you could tell that from all the notes we were furiously taking constantly.
Yeah. Oh man, it literally the room was just filled with the sounds of pen scratching.
I mean, I have a particularly loud pen. I'm going to see if the microphone can pick this up.
A couple of points in the film it was distracting.
Imagine you're watching a quiet film and you just hear this.
During a really tense scene.
So I'm sorry guys for that.
No, it needs to be done. You can't talk about this film without taking notes.
No, I mean, we all definitely said at least once, I kind of wish we weren't having to take notes, because I just want to give it my undivided attention, because that's what it deserves and demands.
Just to absorb all of that cinematography, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's a lot going on there.
So much.
But before we go any further, let's have the back of the box preview, Rob.
Okay, just going to give everyone a pre-warning. Pre-warning. You don't say that.
Yeah, you do.
No, it's warning. You can't pre-warn.
A warning is in its essence.
Yeah, my dad is going to hate me for saying that. That's one of his things. But I'm going to warn everyone that it's very small on the back of the box. And I've tried it once already.
Go on, man.
Okay. When Ellen, the matriarch of the Graham family, passes away, her daughter Annie, played by Toni Collette, her husband, played by Gabriel Byrne, and their 2 children begin to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying secrets about their ancestry. The more they discover, they more than find themselves trying to outrun the sinister fate that they seem to have inherited. Making his feature debut, writer-director Ari Aster unleashes a nightmare vision of a domestic breakdown that exhibits the craft and precision of a nascent auteur. I know. Didn't think I was going to get that one right.
Nicely done.
Yeah, mate.
Transforming a familial tragedy into something ominous and deeply disquieting, and pushing the horror movie into chilling new terrain with its shattering portrait of heritage gone to hell.
Ominous and deeply disquieting indeed.
I
Pretty
think,
much summarises it.
yeah, nail on the head.
Yeah. So, where do we start off in this film, guys?
Do you want to start off with the plot, or do you want to go into what there is to love about this film? Because for me personally, like, this is a list long within itself. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the very first thing that comes to my head, which I think is quite obvious but needs to be said. Toni Collette in this film is so good.
So good.
I can't get over how good she is in this film. Like, her performance is... Just her performance in of itself makes me nervous. She is so convincingly manic, man. She, like, some of those scenes where she's, like, really, like, breaking down, like, it just watching them made me jittery, because she just conveys that so well. And you know, it completely adds to the whole, like, narrative element of, you know, is she just mad? Is this, you know, which is obviously a concern of, particularly of the husband character, but the whole cast is fantastic. Like,
it's funny though, you say that. Were you convinced or ever even suspicious of the fact that maybe she was just mad? Or
it definitely crosses your mind as the viewer.
See, it never did for me. I got that obviously it was a completely natural thing for the husband.
Yeah,
and
100%.
At certain points as well, but it never ever made me think that maybe it's just that. Like, I was totally sold on the...
I mean, by the, like, for sure past a certain point in the film, it's very obvious that there is definitely something way higher up going on. But I mean, that element of her being mad, I think it is just because of how convincingly manic she is. And there's during the scene where she goes to the support group, she mentions that her brother was schizophrenic, and was it her father?
Her dad had psychosis,
and starved himself to death. And then you think of the title, Hereditary.
It was psychotic depression, by the way.
Psychotic depression. That's right. And he starved himself. And then you think about the nature of mental illness and how it is passed down, you know, in a way that is hereditary. So I definitely had that thought a few times while watching the film, which, you know, it adds...
No, actually that hadn't really occurred to me in that way. Yeah. And yeah, also her mother had DID as well, so it was
what is DID? Pardon my ignorance.
It's an identity disorder.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to try and guess. It's an identity disorder.
All right, yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely rife in the family. You're right.
Yeah. No, I mean, but you know, like that. The whole family, every actor in the family is brilliant.
They really are.
Like the fact that this is what's her name? Do you have her name written down? The girl who plays Charlie.
Millie Shapiro.
It's the first film. That's insane.
She's 16 years old.
Is she 16?
Yeah.
I saw she'd been on Broadway before, hasn't she?
Yeah,
Oh,
so
blimey.
going into the cast a little bit, Millie Shapiro, 16 years old, from America, from Florida. This was her film debut, which is insanely impressive.
Really?
I mean, it's funny she's 16. That's surprising on one hand because she's so good, but then also not because she's so good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, completely.
And that probably has a lot to do with the fact that, she's done theatre work in the past. She was in Matilda and something else as well. But yeah, theatre work mainly. But yeah, first film. Craziness.
It seems to me a lot of the best film actors have a background in theatre. That seems to be a pretty common thread I've observed. But yeah, the whole family is phenomenal. I think that their dynamic as characters on screen, I think it really is the main thing that draws you in, draws you so deeply into how that family works, which makes when the horror really starts to kick in towards the second act, it really does become a lot more affecting than I think your average horror film. Because I've got to say, I think this is the scariest film I've seen in a few years.
Yeah, man. Oh, it scared me so. This is the first film in years that a few days later I was still thinking about it.
Yeah, it made me anxious. Like, I was sitting the first time I watched this, I was sitting there anxious. Like, I'm hardened and jaded. I don't want to be. So it it's a wonderful thing when a film like this comes along and reminds you, hey, you're not completely dead inside. It's just that a lot of horror films suck. You know, this is class. This film. I mean,
so you would say you would use the word scared?
Yeah, I definitely. The film makes me anxious. That doesn't happen often when I watch horror films at all. And I watch a lot of horror films, obviously.
We first heard about this, or I first heard about it when we took a trip to London, and it was in the tube station. There, it had it on the wall. I remember first seeing, well, you pointed out, Ruby, saying, just like The Exorcist or something like that, or the best thing since The Exorcist,
If I'm not mistaken, the quote is this generation's Exorcist, but this will make even more heads turn.
Yes. Yeah. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it's another situation with A24, who are the distributors of this film. I understand why they've done this. So, as a bit of back context, they are the company who also distributed The Witch and It Comes at Night, which I think in terms of their marketing campaign, I think it is very comparable in that they've marketed these films as being very much straight ahead horror movies. Which I completely understand because they have to make their money, and you're not going to be able to sell mass audiences on the sort of the deeper complexities of these films, but you have to get arses in seats. So audiences go to these films expecting a straight up horror film, and they leave being very disappointed.
I was going to say there must have been a lot of disappointed people.
I think there was on this.
There was a ton. General audiences did not like this film at all. Like you've got to keep in mind if an audience member goes expecting something like, I don't know, like Insidious or something, and I'm not, I like the first Insidious film. I haven't seen the other ones, so this isn't a put down on that kind of thing. But if someone goes to see this film expecting something like that, you are going to be disappointed because it is a slow burn. It doesn't spoon feed you at all. It's not a popcorn movie. There's a lot more going on than that. The fact that I've said it requires more than one viewing, I think, definitely kind of says it all, really.
And that's the thing, I think I've definitely mentioned this to you guys in the past. I don't know if I said it maybe in the intro episode, but this film fits perfectly into that category of, like, to me, it's a drama.
Yeah.
It's drama driven. It is about those relationships between those people.
Entirely,
I mean... I didn't look at the clock at any point because I was so engrossed in it, but I'm pretty sure nothing even slightly horror related even really happens.
There are quite a lot. I would still class this as a straight up horror film to me. Well, not like Halloween or like Nightmare on Elm Street, but I would still rank this as a horror film as opposed to me It Comes at Night, which is I understand that they're from the same distributor, but I would say this is more a straight up horror film than a drama-y type thing, because like there was a lot of bits in this film that were like almost jump scares, like the bit where you first see the grandma again. I know that it's not a jump scare and they don't put the music into it, but she looks in the corner of her workshop and there she is, and that it would if they would have added music to that would have been a typical run-of-the-mill jump scare. The fact that they didn't, it makes it even better for me because it's not like they're trying to do anything.
What I think is quite relevant, actually, that I found out in my research is during the pre-production, Ari Aster, the director, actually said that instead of a traditional horror film, he had more in mind that he wanted to make a tragedy that curdles into a nightmare.
Exactly.
He listed family dramas as being as much of an influence to the film as straight up horror films. The thing is, though, as much as that of course is a huge influence to the film, I think the tone of the horror, like the score, there's always the ominous nature of that score is always there, and there's always some, even in a lot of the scenes where it is based on the family and it could be a scene from a drama film, there always seems to be something wrong. Like, there's always something.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it's not a horror at all. Like it is. Of course. It's just that it's so different to what we're so used to coming out at the moment. Like
completely,
marketed in that way, and there being disappointed viewers. That kind of says it all.
Yes, I mean, I think when you're thinking about fans that would go and see films like The Nun, and we go see like Annabelle and The Conjuring and all that kind of stuff, which whether you think those films are good or not, this one does not rank at all near them. So I can see why you'll think, if you think those are the horror films that are coming out this day and age, and then this comes out, you don't really want to put it in the same genre because it isn't in the same genre. Like, this is it's fucking amazing, this film.
What the phrase that comes to my mind, whilst I was watching this is like accessible, artsy cinema, right?
Yeah, I'd say so too.
It's very artsy, but it isn't. You don't have to be into that thing necessarily to get it or to enjoy it.
It's not necessarily abstract.
No.
It's just some of it is a little hard to grasp. And
It's just highbrow.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on. You know what I mean, like thematically, and I mean it's just a lot. I think this film is just a lot. It's a lot to take in, just to, like, emotionally.
It really is.
You know, in terms of all the different plot threads, and I mean, but I do think that general audiences, you know, I think general audiences could love this film, and I hope they do. I hope that through time it gathers a cult following.
Oh, it will.
I'm certain it will.
In saying that this film is a lot, I wonder how long you guys think it actually took for them to tell the tale of this film.
This is competition time.
It is competition time. There's 1 point up for grabs in this segment. Ruby, you lost last episode's one. Oh, by the way, Manny, how did you enjoy your prize? Some opening the cellophane. How did that go for you?
Oh, I couldn't do it. I've got really badly bitten fingernails, which wasn't helped by this film, actually. Yeah, I couldn't do it, mate. I let you do it.
Yeah.
Not an easy task.
Not really. Especially not when you've got tiny little fingernails.
You do have tiny little fingernails.
I do.
Right. Who wants to go first? I'll let you guys decide this time.
I think because you won, I should go first.
Yeah, that's fair.
That makes so much sense. I don't know why I did that. I kind of just screwed myself over. Normally you give me a hint with your guess. It's not short. This film is not short. As much as I loved it, start to finish, I felt that it wasn't short, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I reckon it was over 2 hours. I reckon it was 2 hours and 10 minutes.
So 130 minutes in total. Okay.
I know that's a lot, but that's... nah, I'm sticking with it.
Stick with it. Cool.
I'm going to go with 1 hour 50, so yeah, look, what's that? My math is just as good as hers.
That's 110 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'm going with that.
Okay, so Ruby, you win the first point this episode. It was 127 minutes long.
Oh, really?
So you were 3 minutes off.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I started to doubt myself after I said it. But
I know you doubted me when I said that.
Yeah.
Looking at me like I'm wrong.
I mean, I'm so engrossed by this film, but then the second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm a very good. I can't be relied upon. I'm too. This film completely captures me when the second time I watched it. But yeah, no.
They needed that time to tell that story, though.
Like I said, like there is so much that you know. And funnily enough, in my research, one of the things that I found out is that according to Alex Wolff, who was the boy who played Peter, the original cut of the film could have well gone over 3 hours, mainly with more family dialogue.
Right.
Which I mean, I think I feel as though the cut which we finally got is quite perfect.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Because I think if this film went on for too long, it could really be a drain. I mean, it's draining enough as is, but I can't imagine over 3 hours.
I mean, I think that's got to be one of the main reasons it didn't massively appeal to general audiences anyway. So any longer, and it could have started seriously losing fans.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Was there any other competition questions?
Not for this round, no. We'll have
hold on to
Yep.
them for now.
Okay.
4 more points up for grabs.
Exciting
Alright,
stuff.
Excellent. That's good.
So you mentioned Peter, which is the brother of Charlie Graham.
Yep.
And you also mentioned that he's played by Alex Wolff.
Yep.
He is 20 years old in this film, and
Right.
I found it quite interesting. He has done film work, like quite a bit of film work, but nothing necessarily horror related. And that really did surprise me because, you know, Charlie's great. Millie Shapiro is great. She's fantastic at what she does, but she never really has to portray much more than gormless.
Sure.
When you think about it.
Sure.
And making that noise.
She does it really, really well.
Yeah,
but
completely.
Beyond that, she doesn't do an awful lot. Whereas some of those expressions that Alex Wolff pulls off, it's like are just haunting me right now. Like they're seared into my mind.
I completely agree.
Well, the camera's on his face for like 2 minutes straight at one point, and he's got to portray like so much emotion.
Oh
Yeah. Shall we talk about that scene so we get ourselves to that point, and then we can
Can do. If you need to talk about it.
I want to talk about it now that I've mentioned it.
We've got to dive into the plot.
Wow, I didn't realise it's actually quite further into the film than you think.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's just that I was talking about this film with someone the other day, and they were, we pretty much said that really this film is about that moment, right? If you've seen it, you know exactly what we're talking about right now. There is a lot of build-up beforehand, but actually on second viewing, not as much as I remembered. It felt like it came around quicker. But then when you actually start to break it down, you realise, okay.
There's quite a lot of bits beforehand.
There is, and actually a hell of a lot happens after it as well. So I think I was wrong when I said that the other day.
It's the moment everyone remembers because it's the big shock.
Oh,
it's the big shock.
It still got me this time. Really, really got me.
It's the sound of it happening.
Oh, everything about it. Everything that happens. The lead up to it. And the sound effects, the special effects. Alex Wolff's acting afterwards is just insane.
As much as his acting there is great, I have I have to be devil's advocate and just make one point about his acting in this film for me personally, is that the moments in which he cries, his crying sound of it is, to me, unconvincing.
It's not great.
That was better. Might have been better. I'm sorry if this sounds harsh, but it is the only criticism I have of his performance. The way he cries is, it literally sounds like someone doing a mocking cry.
I'm not going to disagree with you because the same thought crossed my mind too. I did think that whilst I was watching it. Yeah. But then I also questioned it whilst I thought that, and I've heard young men cry, and it's not far off. Yeah. I think that's a huge generalisation, but I've genuinely heard young men of that around that age cry like that. I don't know if it's because in the context of the film and that character, it's I don't know the right word, but making him more of a child. Yeah. It makes him sound more vulnerable than his years suggest.
And his vulnerability is really important to the story, obviously.
Yeah, and there's the scenes when he cries where his dad takes him into his arms and things, and it's just not necessarily what you'd expect from an older teenage boy. Like you said, and it completely establishes that vulnerability, I think.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Apart from him, there's obviously, as you've already mentioned, the wonderful Toni Collette, who plays the mother, Annie. Star of the show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I emphatically
100%.
Yes. You want to talk about haunting facial expressions? Some of the way that she conveys shock, just complete shock in this film. I think of the scene where she's having the dream and she finds Peter's body covered in ants. The way her jaw just drops and her eyes just become. Oh man, it gets to me. Yeah, it really does. She really brings the raw human horrific just nature of some of these scenes home 200%. I can't stop I can't praise Toni Collette enough. This is I'd go as far as to say this might be one of the better horror performances I might have ever seen. In my opinion, she's just, it's unbelievable how good she is. But I've already said that, so but you get my point.
Yeah, and I was just a similar point as with Alex Wolff. She's not done an awful lot of horror. More than him, she was in Sixth Sense in 1999. I don't know if you remember her from that.
Well, did you remember?
Who was she in that?
I believe she was I can't remember their name now. Sorry, it skipped my mind.
Because I know I've seen her before, but I can't place her in any of the films she's been in.
But she was also in Krampus in 2015.
Right.
Which is I like that film. I do.
Oh yeah, I really like Krampus.
Kiddie horror. It's great.
One of the things that I had in my notes was that Toni Collette had said to her agent that she didn't want to do any more heavy, dark, serious movies. I think she's done a lot of drama, that are very heavy drama. But she loved the script of Hereditary so much that she just couldn't turn it down.
Imagine if she didn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't want to think about anyone else in that role. I really don't.
Could have been very different.
Oh, blimey, you're not kidding.
I really liked Gabriel Byrne's performance. I thought he was brilliant. Yeah.
Is that the dad?
Steve, the dad? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he just the tone that he creates of the dad that's trying to hold everything together, and also no one seemed to give a shit about how he's feeling during any of this. It makes you feel so neglected. It makes you feel so bad for him, which makes seeing him try and hold it together seems so much more painful and so just you want everything to go well. Like I at some point was thinking like, everyone just leave him alone and just let him have a decent life because you guys are ruining it for him right now. And he clearly would have a good life because he's such a nice guy, but of course he's he's doing everything for his family and he doesn't get angry at anyone until he's kind of forced to later on. But at the start, during all the tragedy that they go through, he's like just there for everyone, really.
I mean, you say that. I mean, it's how did you take, like I said, during the film, where obviously the tragedy happens with Charlie and then we're never given a sense exactly of how much time has passed in the following scenes.
Yeah.
And it felt quite quick that he started to lose, for me, it felt quite quick that he started to lose his patience with Annie.
I think
and that's what made me kind of go, oh wait, has it actually been 6 months, a year? We don't know that.
I think that all comes down to context, though, because when I know what you mean, the first time he loses it a bit, if you think about what's actually happening, is she is recreating the death of his daughter, their daughter,
in the miniatures.
In the miniatures, and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like getting all angry about it. Yeah. And this is something that I started to realize. I started to forget that it's his daughter as well. Like the way that it's kind of treated, you kind of feel like it's her loss and Peter's as well, but it doesn't really. It kind of feels like it's not his loss, even though it is. But it kind of feels like it's because those two are going through such a tough time of it. You really kind of forget that he's lost a daughter as well, and it and he's having to deal with that.
Yeah, I think I definitely noticed all of that a lot more the second time around again. With the first viewing, he definitely, out of all of them, was the one who least stuck in my mind because he's the less obvious, one. He's less in your face than the rest of them with what he's experiencing.
His emotional responses are very muted in comparison with the rest of them, yeah.
Can I talk about a film that the actor's been in?
Which one?
I want to talk about this film because it's a personal favourite of mine. Okay, it's called End of Days. Okay. And it's got Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. And he's in it, and he plays the devil, and Arnold Schwarzenegger plays some kind of angel. But it's like based. I don't want to go too much into it, but it's a classic Arnie film, but with
So there's a Rob recommendation for you.
Yeah, watch End of Days.
Or anything with Arnie in.
Anything with Arnie in.
Well,
but
sounds
this
like
guy.
A better Arnie film than Twins with Danny DeVito. Is it Twins or Junior? The one where Arnie gets pregnant. That's a classic, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
They're all classics, all right.
So Gabriel Byrne, he's also in the ways of horror. He's in Ghost Ship.
I actually like Ghost Ship.
And also Stigmata in 1999. He was in that. That sort of falls under that.
I don't know if I've seen that or not. I can picture the cover art on the VHS so perfectly. I don't know if I've watched it.
I got Ghost Ship as a double pack. My mum got it for me. It was a double pack of Ghost Ship and House of Wax, the one with Paris Hilton in.
Oh, God.
Oh, Christ.
But that was back in the days when you only had your little collection of DVDs and there was no on-demand or anything, so I watched
What's the reason they came together?
I don't know.
They both came out around the same time.
They're both the same level of...
Well, Ghost Ship has an amazing opening scene where everyone gets cut up by the cheese wire or the piano wire or whatever, and then everything else is terrible. Like it's one of those. Like the opening scene is brilliant, and then the rest of it is boring. That's my dominant memory of it anyway.
Yeah. He's also, funnily enough, in a drama series called In Treatment, alongside none other than Alex Wolff, where they play father and son.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting.
That's cool.
That is very
helped
interesting.
Them out a little bit.
That is very interesting.
One for you, Rob. He's also Earl Haraldson in Vikings.
Yep.
Do you remember? Did you have that?
I did. Yeah, I did.
I've got a nice little a note to add about the fact that they have previously worked together. One of the producers said that having Gabriel Byrne and Alex Wolff previously worked together, and also Millie Shapiro and Alex had also known each other from school. They went to the same school, so that made Toni Collette the outsider, which completely feeds into that character's own feelings of alienation from the family.
Yeah,
which is one of those neat little things. You know what I mean?
That really works.
I mean, maybe it did help her get into that proper mindset. I wouldn't be surprised.
And that was one of the things that stuck out to me, sort of through those opening scenes. The beginning of the movie was that it was so obvious that Annie was warm towards her children, or at least towards Millie, at least towards Charlie, not so much towards Peter, but that it didn't seem to be reciprocated at all. Like, I didn't see any warmth from the children towards her.
No, that's very true.
A lot of resentment towards her.
You could feel it, right? It was like tangible.
Which kind of, but it does get explained in the later scenes with Joan. A little bit.
Yes.
We'll get to.
Yeah, it's not unexplained at all.
No.
In that initial period, it is. And it's the same with the husband as well. Like, quite near the beginning, we see him get a phone call from the cemetery.
Yeah, after is it straight after the funeral?
It's not long.
Not in it's not that day, obviously, but it's scene wise, it's not long after.
Yeah.
Where they tell him the grave has been desecrated, and we see him lie to her face. He doesn't tell her that that's what it was. He says it's something to do with the bill.
Yeah, that's right.
And then she says to him, I'm going to watch a movie. She goes out and doesn't go and watch a movie. So straight away we're like, they're lying to each other.
Yep. They're hiding things from each other.
Yeah, there's an obvious detachment there. This isn't necessarily a healthy marriage.
No, it seems quite easy for them to do that as well. So
very second nature.
Yes, yeah. It wasn't like, because something specific has happened. It's like that's just how they related to each other at that time. Yeah. So apart from the main family, really, there was only one other important character, and that was Anne Dowd, or played by Anne Dowd, I should say, who was Joan.
Right.
Did you guys recognise her at all?
The thing is that sort of character where like the sort of the warm sort of grandma kind of character is such a trope in a way, which it turns out that it is almost too much of a trope. It's all a bit of a
too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. That I almost feel as though I did recognise her, but I'm not sure if it's the actress or if I've just seen that kind of a character in a million other things. Yeah. But her face did definitely ring some bells in the back of my mind. I may have seen her. She's
been an awful lot. I mean, she may even fall into that weird category that I don't quite understand.
Margot Martindale.
Character actor, which, like the famous Margot Martindale. Because she's just been in a lot, but pretty much always as the support. She's won awards for being support, 'cause she's obviously very, very good at it. But the reason I really wanted to bring it up is because she is in probably... dare to say my favourite film of all time, apart from obviously Lord of the Rings, in Garden State. She's Natalie Portman's mum.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, and I know that's such a small thing, but it's very important to me, so I had to say it out loud.
Yeah, I haven't seen Garden State. I think I've only seen it once, so...
Yeah, you made me watch it.
Yeah, Ruby always makes us watch Garden State.
I adore that film with all my heart, and it was annoying because I distinctly remember watching Hereditary for the first time at the cinema, and she was that person who the whole way through the film was like, I know her, what do I know her from?
Yeah.
And never worked it out until today, like looking into it, and I was like, oh my god, of course it is. So yeah, that was good to remember.
She is a great bit of acting. I kind of laughed myself as we were watching the film, is that after they go to, she's come out the craft store, Annie's come out the craft store, and they have that little exchange, and she starts explaining to her about the medium and all that kind of stuff and the seance. She was so good and so believable that I was almost like, guys, I think we should go to a seance. Like, I think there's something really in this. You get a scientist there and everything. It's
Well, I mean, when the character themselves is acting, I mean, I guess the actress has to double act, has to really be convincing in order for, especially considering, the whole dynamic of that scene is that Annie, at first doesn't believe her, because you wouldn't, would you? You know what I mean? Where she said, I managed to summon my dead child, and all this. She wouldn't, but she manages to convince her. And,
it's all the body language, like constantly grabbing her every time.
Yeah, the way she seems so excited. She's jumping to and fro. She's like, she's grasping at the air. She's like going.
I kept thinking like that must be hurting her, because she was like gripping onto that.
Yeah.
Well, she's completely understanding of all the faces that Annie's going to be pulling when she's, that kind of like, oh, I'm not sure, and she's like,
I know what that smile means.
And you're like, oh yeah. That's why I was like, dude, I think there's something in this. We need to go and see something.
Even though you'd already seen it.
Yeah. So yeah, we should talk a bit more about Charlie, I reckon, because soon she's not in the film anymore, and that's quite upsetting. Considering that when you think about this film, I really do think about her as one of the main scary bits and kind of like creepy, but she's barely in the film.
Yeah.
Even after her death, though, like her character does loom over the rest of the film.
Yeah, and that's got to be
sure.
from what she did in those opening scenes. I don't know if it's
completely
Toni Collette's like love for her, and you know the passion that you feel that when she dies, of that's what carries her on throughout the film, or is it the first scenes that we see Charlie and the way she acts, and obviously the noise.
Yeah.
There's something about her that I think is worth talking about.
Well, yeah, she as a character, I mean, she is a little bit unforgettable. She's just got, this might sound a little offensive, but she's got a very strange face as a character. She really does. She really does.
Distinctive.
We'll go with that. It's less harsh. She everything about the character is off. From the moment you see it, she just seems like an incredibly strange kid. Which you see her when the bird flies into the window, and you see her decapitate the bird. Which there's so much foreshadowing in this film. I feel like the entire first act, it goes beyond even the first act. There's so much foreshadowing in this film. But she cuts off the head of the bird. What's that scene where she walks out into the field and she sees what looks like her grandma standing amongst some flames? Do you remember that? And then where Toni Collette's character grabs her back and goes, "What do you think you're doing out here?" I mean, definitely those first few things that she does in the film are so bizarre that it's going to stick with you for the rest of the film. And if you haven't seen it before, you're going to, I think, try and piece together these weird little strange things that she does to the the loose ends of the plot. I mean, for sure.
Well, I think Toni Collette does a really good job of when they're in Charlie's bed after the funeral, and she's kind of telling her that when she was a kid she never used to cry and all that kind of stuff. She really sets you that she's always been odd.
Yeah, definitely.
From normal standards, and I think that it's just something about her. It's great. And when obviously the poor girl gets it.
Genius script writing as much as anything, though, isn't it? Of storytelling.
Yeah.
This script is almost as meticulous as Annie is on her miniatures. Definitely.
Yeah. But I feel like we've jumped all over the place a little bit here.
You
so
can't.
It's very hard not to. It is very hard not to because it's so exciting, and you just sort of want to talk about it all at once.
There are so many different threads going through the film. There is a lot. There's so much to unpack. I think it's inevitable to talk about this film without going all over the place a little bit. But I'd like.
It was what I was going to say is that you saying about all the foreshadowing and all the symbolism and stuff literally the first thing we see, the very first thing we see is the obituary for the grandmother. That's the first thing that you see on screen. Right. But straight after that, it's followed by a shot of the treehouse out of the window, which is just a lovely little starts where it ends, thing, right? Because it ends in the treehouse and it's the first thing you see after the obituary, and I just love that neat little symmetry. It's just pleasant.
Also, what an awesome treehouse!
I know.
Do you see how it's made?
So
It's
cool.
like each corner there's a tree holding up. There's no struts or anything that's made. It's like almost just someone picked it up and just plopped it in between these four trees.
And even that, forget the tree house, that house.
Yeah.
My God, was it beautiful.
And a very interesting point. You mentioned the house itself. The entire set of that house was built from scratch on a soundstage.
What, the exterior?
The interiors of the
right,
house were built from scratch on a soundstage. You mentioned when we were watching it, the opening shot where we zoom into the miniature and then it becomes sort of like the opening scene where it's inside his room.
Cool.
How they did that was from where they built it from the ground up. Inside this soundstage, they made sure meticulously that it was exactly the same as the miniature. So it was like
But there was no transition. How did they achieve that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of like digital manipulation in post in order to kind of get that effect, that like seamless. But I mean, it's a fantastic opening shot. I mean, just in terms of from the sheer cinematography of it, let alone what it might mean symbolically, which is a whole thing in of itself. But just in terms of like the actual filmmaking involved, I mean, honestly, the set design on this film is wonderful. Like, I think rewatching it in like proper Blu-ray, I spent half the film just studying all of the insides of these rooms, you know, where the room where she's making all of her miniatures and you know, all these things, and you're sort of searching for clues, and you're looking through just for any little bits and pieces. There's so much to look at. Like you said, taking notes was painful at points because I just wanted to constantly stare at this wonderfully shot film, and it's brilliantly made for sure.
Speaking of taking notes, did any of you remember what was written on the wall of Charlie's bedroom?
Say Tony.
Yeah.
Say Tony.
Yeah. Which seems to be written on the wall of everyone that's going to have something bad happen to them.
Yeah.
Well, the words change, don't they?
Yeah, they change, and I would add them all. I added them all together, and it doesn't make any sense.
There's also Zazaz.
Does it not? Is it not the words of the spell thing at the end?
Yeah. It's words that are involved in that. I really thought it was kind of it was going to say something like Annie's going to chop her head off or something, but it didn't.
You hear what's the name of the old lady character? My mind's gone blank.
The grandmother or Joan?
No,
Joan.
The Joan. That scene where Peter's sitting there at lunch outside and you see her from across the street. She says, "Say Tony, get out, Peter, get out." So it adds to this feeling as though they've inherited this fate, and
they're marked.
They are marked. I mean, and like we noticed during that classroom scene, I think the first one, they're talking. I can't remember what play they're talking about, but the girl specifically says something along the lines of, it's almost more tragic because it's like they had no choice. They were just pawns in a game much bigger than them. So there's so many
What she actually says is pawns in this hopeless machine, and that's there. I wrote that down too because it stuck out to me so much. Yeah, very obvious but tasty.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, this really got to me, that I actually rewinded the scene because I had to double check. I literally watched Halloween yesterday because it was Halloween. It has to be done, right? There's a scene in Halloween, I don't know if you guys remember this, where Jamie Lee Curtis is in the classroom and they're literally discussing fate and about escaping fate, right?
Yeah.
Written on the blackboard in Hereditary is escaping fate. That can't be a coincidence. That has to be some kind of...
I'd like to think so.
Surely.
So I'm going to believe that he did that.
I noticed that while that was written while I was doing my research. I think that I think that is a direct reference. Yeah.
I would love it if that was true.
Because I'm going to say it is.
I never noticed stuff like that, and I think purely because I watched Halloween yesterday, and I've started to notice in pretty much any film when there's a classroom scene and the teacher's talking away in the background, they're almost always saying something relevant to the film, to the plot. They're always learning about like an author or a book or something that is relevant.
It's a bit of a trope at this point.
Yeah, but it's a good one and I like it.
Oh, definitely.
I'd rather that than them just saying gibberish.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially if it's like a nice little shout out to a classic horror, that's even better.
Lovely.
Okay, so on the road to the head coming off, let's say that they go into the party. Weirdly, I found it a bit weird that Annie like kind of forces Charlie to accept to go into this party with her brother Peter, because I mean Annie must know that he's not going to like a school barbecue. He's going to a party. Remember what the text said that invited him to the party? What was he asked to bring with him?
his nether regions.
Nice, yes, well done.
Yeah.
Of course, bring your dick. Yeah.
That's how you know it's going to be a party. But Annie must know that it's going to be that kind of party, but she kind of makes, and she kind of, poor girl's being forced even though she doesn't want to.
At first it didn't stick out to me that much because I thought, because the actor is 16, I was like, oh, she's 16, so that's maybe she's just trying to make her slightly eccentric daughter go and join in the fun with the rest of the kids. But then she says later on that she's 13. I was like, why are you pushing at that so much?
Yeah, my mum wouldn't be like, take your sister with you.
Yeah, maybe she thinks it's going to force him to be more responsible. Maybe.
So that's why he had to go along with it, because he told her it was a school thing, so he had to be like, oh yeah, of course you can come. He couldn't then go back and say, no, she can't come.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be getting
it's not
high.
Gonna be good for her.
Yeah, so as they're driving, we go past a telephone pole, and it's got the symbol that Annie and her mother were wearing. The necklaces that they were wearing was on the necklaces they wear. The symbol from that was...
Annie's wearing it.
She's wearing it when she's saying the speech in
Is
in
she?
the funeral. Yeah, she's wearing it on her neck, and then you see it on the grandmother's neck when we see her in the coffin. And so then they go to the party, which just it was felt so sorry for Charlie.
Oh, honestly, it breaks my heart, that scene. It really just makes me want to pick her up and wrap my arms around her. You can just feel her loneliness and her anxiety. It really is heartbreaking.
So I do have two issues with this scene and the following shot scene afterwards. And this might be a bit nitpicky. My first one is, how many kids do you see baking at high school parties? Like, I'm just going to bake a cake and chop up some nuts. That's really common,
way of justifying this in my attempt to protect this film was it not a normal cake? If you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think I've never been to an American party, so our American fans, and we actually do have some, believe it or not. We're very excited to say. Could you let us know that at parties in America when you're in high school, do you bake cakes? That would make that. Then we can put this whole argument to bed. But the main reason is we see them chopping up some nuts, and earlier in the funeral scene we see Charlie eating some chocolate, and both parents say, has it got nuts in it? And it's obvious that she's got a nut allergy.
Yeah.
If anything, that's what bothers me a lot more. Is at the funeral they say, has it got nuts, because we haven't got her EpiPen. And then later on she goes to this party and he's like, I haven't got your EpiPen. And it's like, dude, she's got a life-threatening peanut allergy or nut allergy, and you're just not bothering to
She's
carry
13.
around.
She should have it herself.
I guess that, but she's also clearly quite immature for her age.
Yeah.
So it's just like, no one's thinking, I should probably bring the life-saving medicine.
If you've got a nut allergy that bad,
yeah, like that bothers me more than anything, to be honest.
But
then also they have established that they're quite a disconnected family, so
I was just imagining the film if they did have the EpiPen. He just does it, go home, and then the cult's like, shit, what are we going to do now? We marked that lamppost for no reason. We're going to have to bash her head on it.
Well, one thing I noticed, specifically because I'd made note of it when doing my research, was when the kids are upstairs in the room, when Peter goes up to smoke weed, they're watching an old black and white video of someone being decapitated with a guillotine, which is, again, a lovely little touch. So I'm going to get to my second issue, and you just sort of brought it up. And I think this one is slightly less nitpicky. I can't help but feel as though the entire premise that whole part, the part where she's decapitated, has been set up by the cult. So they know she's going to eat the cake, so they know she's going to start
There could have been some children from the cult there.
There could have been, maybe. So they know that she's going to stick her head out of the window. I understand that they put the dead animal in the middle of the road, so it was swept. But it's one of my only issues with the film.
But that's where the supernatural element comes in, to kind of just be like, supernatural.
Like with any supernatural horror, there's always going to be that excuse.
Which is painful, because it's the same as, it was a dream kind of thing. Just to get us through this bit and to be like, we can live with it. But I know what you mean.
I can live with it. It is just one of the only things that does really niggle at me with this film.
Also, if they wouldn't have done it that way, because I never would have ever guessed that she was going to be decapitated by her head hitting that post.
No.
So I suppose in a way I'm happy that they did lead us such down there's no way that they could have planned this track, just so we got that whoa,
it's just deals with those issues that we've already spoken about, like with fate and stuff, doesn't it? Like the Hereditary and fate and all that kind of stuff is like, this was going to happen. Nothing that they could have done would have stopped it.
No, sure.
So anyway, we get to that bit. We're there now. How did you guys feel about the head loss?
That happening, and about the 5 minutes after that happening is, I mean, it's just painful. Like everything about that scene is just a little bit much. Like the first time I ever watched that scene where she becomes decapitated, and we just focus on Peter's face in the front seat of the car, just in complete shock. So you know he's stoned out of his mind. He's sitting there in the front of his car, and you're completely there with him. I literally felt my mouth open the first time I watched that. I was just sitting there frozen, like fully paralysed. And then he goes home. We're not 100% sure of what he's done at first, but he goes home, he gets out the car, he goes upstairs, and then we find out that he's just left the body in the car, because we just hear Annie screaming with pain, and that whole sequence going from there to the funeral is just generally quite emotionally distressing. Like it really does like weigh you down fully. That's the moment where you know the film is really not afraid to pull. It's not going to pull punches.
No, it really reminds me of the scene in Funny Games where the mother is just sat there after everything's gone down and all the murders taken place, and she just sat there for about 2 minutes, not moving.
Yeah, you're not given any reprieve from the emotional brutality,
and that's very similar to what we see here. Apart from Peter has the actor who plays Peter has to do a lot of work with just his face, like not doing little bits and pieces just to keep us going. And I think that's great. And also, that bit where after when you hear Annie scream, that actually lasts 3 scenes. We have 3 scenes move on from that scream. It doesn't stop until we get, so we have when she finds out what's going on, and when she goes to see the car. Then we have the bit where Steve is holding her in the bedroom. And she's rocking back and forth, screaming, and then we go to the funeral scene where she's still crying and screaming as the coffin's lowered.
Yeah, that's right. It is. Even thinking about it is it definitely is so affecting like that, and I think
it's excruciating.
It is. It's proper painful. It's really.
I cried my eyes out the first time. I just cried my eyes out again. I think I probably would a third time too, because that scream is just haunting.
Yeah.
And then her crying is so believable. You just feel her pain, like so much pain, and it's actually just really so sad. Like that scene where her, from literally where her head comes off her shoulders to her being buried, like that entire sequence. It's like, it's not scary. It's just sad, like on such a deep, relatable level. And that's so important in this kind of film, to really, really make you feel that, so that you can actually understand everything that's going to come thereafter.
You definitely empathise with the characters, and that is that's central in any kind of horror film, really.
Yeah.
And you do. I think that is where the family drama element really comes into play. Is that empathy
for all of their perspectives,
for all of them, and where that empathy is really driven in. Once the horror really does start to kick up, you really feel it through them. It's brilliantly made.
It still plays on my mind. It really did the first time round, and it really did again. Really plays on my mind as to what the hell Peter told them, what and how he told them, because it doesn't show you that interaction at all. Like, it skips from her discovering the body to the funeral, and however much time is supposed to have passed after that in the following scenes. It's like, what did he say and how did he say it? Because he was comatose, and he is deeply disturbed now for the rest of his life. That's a massive understatement.
I almost feel as though that kind of plays into his mental state afterwards. It would everything after that would become a blur. He probably wouldn't remember, the way it just like transitions into a what we assume is a fair bit of time afterwards. You kind of you get a sense that everything would be just a blur of like where the trauma would really kick in.
Right, we're 53 minutes in. And as last week, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. So it's the next bit of the competition. Are we ready?
Oh yes.
Okay, so we're going to do the guess the rating round. I assume you guys the IMDb rating by now.
Yeah, I did see it earlier on. We'll go through the IMDb page.
Yeah, so we're not going to bother with that one. There's going to be 2 points up for grabs on this one. I'll tell you the IMDb rating afterwards so that you guys can't use that to guess the right answer on the other ones.
Okay.
So we're going to go for Rotten Tomatoes first. And Manny, you decide.
I know from my research of the film that the film did very well critically. It did very well critically. So I'm going to go with 90%.
Okay.
Yep, 90%.
I'm going to go with the first number that came to my head, 82%.
Okay, well, point to Manny. It was 89%.
Yeah.
That was very close.
That was close.
What's the scores at the moment? 1-1.
1-1.
Okay.
Ooh, neck and neck.
Now we go for Metacritic. Ruby, you can go first.
What was the last one? 89% on Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic. 87.
Okay.
I'm going to go with 80.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we have our first on the nose answer.
Oh.
And it was Ruby with 87%.
Yeah.
So have you just taken the lead, Ruby?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow.
By 1 point.
Okay.
All right.
The IMDb rating was 7.3. So that's kind of the lowest out of them. But at the same time, it's very hard to get anything above a 7.
For a horror film,
IMDb.
it is really rare. In fact, considering the fact that I know the cinema score rating for this film, which is when they do the initial screening of the film in cinema, they'll ask a select few audiences when they come out, or just a guy with a clipboard, will say, "What do you think of the film?" That was D- with this
Really?
film. Yeah. Like a lot of initial audiences
What are these
hated
people
it.
on?
They're expecting Insidious. They're expecting Sinister.
Yeah, but you've got something better, so surely that would make you happy. I just find it
But it's
bizarre.
weird because I love Insidious and Sinister, but I can also love this film. I don't...
Yeah,
of
you can
course.
like more than one type of thing.
And also,
right?
James Wan's got nothing to do with this, so don't expect...
One of the only horror films coming out that he doesn't have.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's just very strange to me.
It is bizarre, but yeah.
So, was that it for now, for the competition?
Yep, there's 2 more points left for grabs, left up for grabs. So, Manny, you can still win here.
Oh, it's all for the takings.
Okay, so where did we get to plot-wise? We were kind of just talking about like the grief scenes, right? That's how I think of them, the grief scenes, which is obviously the initial ones with Annie just completely breaking down and Peter pretty much becoming zombified and the father holding it all up, really.
Yep.
And then we get to the biggest grief scene, I think, is the dinner scene.
Yeah, definitely.
So tense.
This is where I really feel as though the drama aspect of the film really comes to a head. Like it is, I think it's the strongest scene of drama in the film. Yeah. It's so brilliantly acted, and like I said, the tension. It just shows you that it doesn't need to be a traditional horror film to really get at you. Because it's so uncomfortable. Like it really is just the tension that you can feel specifically between Annie and her son. The way that these resentments that they've been holding in, the way it all explodes out. It's brilliantly acted,
and it's quite relatable as well. I mean, obviously, I've never been in a situation quite like that, or anything even remotely like it. But the tense dinner. I mean, you guys must have been there at some point. Like, nobody's talking, and there's so much to say, but it's just building and building.
You can tell they were both waiting for an excuse to just go at each other.
Yeah. And he's the one who actually finally sort of says something just to coax it out of her that little bit, and then it all just explodes.
Yeah,
and it's a bit of a relief, really, when it does.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
At least I don't have to worry anymore. It's happened now.
Yeah.
I love that line where she said, I'm sick of that face on your face.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's so realistic because you say stupid shit like that, don't you, when you're angry? Like, you get flustered and you just say something out of passion, like you mean it, but it was just like, shit, that was a really terrible way to say it.
Don't you swear at me, you little shit. It's brilliant.
But then, also some super serious stuff comes out. Like, when she says to him, like, it's something like, because you did what you did. Like, that just, or every time I'm like...
Yeah,
she said it. She actually said it out loud.
Like fully putting it on him, even though she skirted around it with everything else she said.
Yeah,
I know it was an accident. I know you're acting, but because you did what you did,
puts
all
the blame on
you can
him.
tell that's the first time that she's said anything like that. But she's wanted to. You can tell she's been wanting to just let him know that you did that.
Yeah. And then he obviously comes back.
And then, but you let her go to the party.
Yeah.
You made her go to the party.
And he waits a while to say that, right? He doesn't say it straight away out of anger. He kind of lets it simmer and then says, what about you? Like, what actions did you take that ultimately led to her death?
And then it takes the father going, no, this ends right now, because this is, he knows, anybody would be not ending well, this conversation,
And then he kind of shows his caring side because Annie storms off and you're left with just Peter and Steve sitting there, and Steve still reaches over and puts his arm on Peter to kind of be like, I'm here for you, and you think, damn, this guy is really like working hard for these guys.
That, and also I just feel like he genuinely is kind of on his side with it. You can see that he's starting to see Annie's cracking, and that he clearly thinks it's completely within her own mind and not because of any external sources. I think genuinely his sympathies lie more with Peter anyway. Otherwise, he's not chasing after his wife; he's staying there with his son. So, which I think is very important. I think that one of the main things this whole film makes me think about is the fact that our culture often has no appropriate outlet for grief. There's so many taboos around it. I mean, not just in our culture, in every culture, but particularly with ours, it's not letting it show, stiff upper lip. I mean, obviously they're American, it's very different, but that kind of Western culture of how we expect each other to deal with these things and expect ourselves to deal with these things. There is almost that element of like weeks or months later when she's still in so much pain, it's like, why are you still so bad? There's almost that pressure on her. Well,
yeah, I mean, especially with us in our kind of culture, is whenever anything bad happens and someone says, how are you doing? No matter how you are, most of the time you just reply with, yeah, I'm alright. Yeah. Or like, yeah, I'm okay. And then you'll let it out, but you never just go like, I'm actually awful. Like, I'm not doing it. You always go like, yeah, I'm alright, I'm okay. But this is what kind of, like, we always answer with that. And you think, why? A lot of the time, people, when you ask people that, they're not okay, but we don't reply with the truth.
And maybe that's not the same in America. Like, obviously, that's probably maybe quite a British thing.
I mean, it definitely feeds to the stereotype, doesn't it?
Yeah. But just in general, it's not like, I'm pretty sure it's not acceptable in parts of the USA to go outside and scream for however long you need and want to. It's you still, it's very much, you keep it to yourself as much as possible.
We've got a family to look after. We've got all of these pressures that
money to make and
I mean that is a very real horror, is it not? That is a very, very real horror that most people will have to face at some point. How do you rebuild a family back from the ground up after something as disastrous as this has happened? It's a grim prospect. You don't need anything supernatural to dress that up in. It's
exactly like even to the point where like it really struck me when she looks up and sees a post-it note in her gallery that she's in her studio rather that she's written to herself where it says "Call gallery about extending?" ? And it just really struck me because I'm like, what, that shouldn't have to be an issue for her. Like, it's not like she's just gotten behind on her work and she's afraid to let them know. It's like her daughter died in horrific circumstances and she still doesn't feel completely able to ring up a gallery and be like, by the way, I'm going to need some more time. You know, it's that restricting to her.
I kind of, when I first saw that note, I thought it was Steve that did that. But now hearing you say that she left it for herself, that makes so much more sense. But I don't know if you feel. I felt like it was Steve because obviously he's caring for all of that kind of stuff.
Done, actually.
And
I didn't consider that.
I thought it was her because I always thought that studio where she makes the miniatures is kind of her own,
like a haven.
her own little cocoon. Hence why I think she uses it as an opportunity to make reconstructions of the accident, and then we also get the reconstruction of the earlier scene where it is like the mum taking care of Charlie when she's younger, which she obviously feels a lot of resentment for.
The grandmother, you mean?
Yeah. And it does strike me as it's a place where she can process her own grief. Like you say, like how do people deal with it? I think that with that character, very explicitly, those miniatures are a way in which she can process these horrible things, and maybe that is why in some of the earlier scenes, I mean, in the support group, when she's talking about the things that happen to her family, she comes off as being quite cold, doesn't she? When she's explaining it through, so maybe that is how she does
how
it.
she's dealing with it. Yeah, definitely.
What is the next scene after this? What is the next major plot
Go
point,
for
should we say?
Joan takes Annie to her apartment, we'll call it, to do the séance for her to talk to Louis.
Yep, that's right.
And that scene, that's probably the most when the supernatural stuff kind of starts coming in.
Quite traditional horror stuff going on there, right? Like her hair blowing as if someone's just touched
fingers on the glass,
definitely.
no pressure.
Yeah, Ouija board stuff going on, but it's quite nice when it happens. It's just like, oh, this is familiar, like I know what's going to happen here.
Right.
It's really the only time that actually happens in the entire movie.
But acted so well that it's not silly at all.
No,
It's
not even a bit.
Yeah.
And she understandably freaks out, as I think anybody would.
Sure.
But takes the materials with her anyway. Joan kind of forces that on her, right?
Yeah.
And then that ultimately leads to what I would say is the next really big important portion of the film, which is she has the nightmare sequence, where we see she's explained it earlier, hadn't she, where she sleepwalks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when she had doused the children in, was it paint thinner?
Yeah, paint thinner, yeah.
And Peter had woken up to see this, and it was something that had troubled their relationship for years afterwards. But that nightmare sequence, man, is just disturbing.
The ants on the face look so good.
It's horrible.
Yeah, that gets to something pretty deep rooted, doesn't it? It's quite literally properly disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just grim.
And obviously, it's the same as what happened to Charlie's head, the decapitated
So
head.
it's almost like that's come back with a vengeance, but it's representing this new anxiety that she has, which has been triggered by the death of Charlie.
Yeah.
For sure, that nightmare sequence is. I mean, it's a brilliant use of the double fake out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about horror tropes, it was a dream and then it happens again. I've seen that in countless films, but it's done to a degree here where the first time you see it, you don't see it coming at all.
No.
You really think that where she is where it's like, oh, it was a dream, and then she gets covered in paint. At first, you're like, oh, Christ, and then obviously it turns out to be a dream again.
Yeah.
I mean, even though, we're all seasoned horror fans, that I think the first time that happened, that got all of us, didn't it? So
definitely. Yeah. I think it even did the second time round. I
completely.
totally forgot that was how it sort of pans out. It was done really, really well.
Excellent.
And yeah, that kind of experience would drive anyone a little bit mad. So I think that's when she decides to obviously turn towards the seance option.
Yep.
And to get her family involved with that as well.
Yeah. That is where that character does start to become really manic.
Oh, that whole bit.
Yeah, where when she's trying to convince them, please, we need to do this. Come on, I really need you to hear. And her performance just makes me nervous. It just makes me genuinely jittery and oh god, man.
So on edge.
Yeah,
proper.
You really feel her forcing Steve down the stairs and just to do it, and he fights her the whole way.
Yeah,
but he's going to let her give it a go, because of course he's going to let her do it, because he's going to he will. And obviously when Peter says, I'm going to stay and do the seance thing, you kind of, know it's going to happen. But you are just, the whole feeling of, like, Steve really doesn't want to do it. And yes, it's brilliant. And the panic you feel from her, because 1 second I'm like, oh, just Steve, just do it. And then Steve goes like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm like, yeah, Steve, let's not do this seance. It's not a good idea.
But again, it's not like in a lot of other horror films, especially when Ouija boards and seances are concerned, there's usually that one character, isn't there, who's like, I'm not going to do it. And it's like, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
This is just, delaying the inevitable. And it actually, ultimately, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. When he's doing it, you start to realise the more he's pushing against it, is he really believes that by doing that he's encouraging her problems, what he sees as her mental health issues.
Enabling her.
Exactly, definitely. And enabling her and making her think that this is actually reality. So you completely sympathise with why he's doing it, and if anything, you almost want him to succeed.
Yeah.
For her not to be right, but then it turns out she is.
Yeah.
We all know how that went.
Yep, and then we get a... is that when we get another crying moment from...
Yes,
yep.
I believe so.
From Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah. He the father embraces him and he does his...
You can't really blame him.
No, not really. It's all a bit much, isn't it? Just a tad. Where is the next major plot point?
This is the thing, we're actually having to really follow like a strict... Well, not quite a strict pattern here, because a structure, I should say, because this film is so mental and there's so much to like take apart and to think about that we could probably sit here all night and go round in circles.
Makes you feel as unhinged as the characters.
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to luck into getting this one perfect with the plot. I think House of a Thousand Corpses is quite easy to do the plot. With this one, you can't really.
Different.
Yeah, it feels like we can't really miss much out. But
no,
yeah,
I think as long as you cover the main bases, which I think after that seance scene with the family, it really is about shit going crazy.
Yeah.
Just going batshit crazy.
That final act is nuts.
Yeah.
It goes completely off the wall. So we have the moment where it goes into Peter's at school. Mm-hmm. And he is sitting at his desk and he becomes possessed. I assume he sees his own reflection in the mirror. Or is that an earlier scene?
That's an earlier scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an earlier scene where he looks at himself in the mirror and his reflection is smiling back at him. But in this scene, he sticks up his hand, but in a way that is very contorted. And I've got to admit, in terms of for what gets to me personally, this scene, like, it makes my stomach go. I've got a proper thing about contorted faces.
You were like jumping in your seat. You were so uncomfortable.
I can't deal with it. He sticks his hand up in there and it looks like his face is being pushed by something.
It does,
invisible.
doesn't it? Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, literally just looking at it was messing
He
with
looks
me.
like he's got like a hook in the corner of his head and they just pulled it a bit. And
and he slams his head down into the desk. And would you like to know something absolutely insane about the filming of this scene?
What?
So they made a desk where the top half of it was made of rubber, but the bottom half of it was hard. And Alex, the actor, smashed his face so hard into the desk that he dislocated his jaw.
What?
He dislocated
so he did
his jaw.
actually do it to himself.
Yeah, you are actually watching the actor slam his head into the thing. He dislocated his jaw.
Wow.
He said that he was actually willing to break his nose for real, and they said, "Oh no, we'll make the desk,
a bit softer."
And it didn't matter because that's how hard he slammed into it. And I mean, just the way that character then realised what he's doing and recoils and just starts screaming. It just it's grim, man. It's so grim. It makes me like. Again, it's just another instance of this film being like the champion of being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like nobody comes to his rescue. They're all so terrified of him. They're just like backing away into a corner. And again, it actually reminds me of the scene at the party with Charlie when she's just like she's suffering and she's in a crowded room and she's suffering and no one is coming to her defense. Like no one even knows she's there. And it like happens to him where everyone is fully looking at him, totally aware of what's going on and not physically like doing anything to help him, because it's like, what is happening with this guy? So it happens with all of them. There's a very lonely feeling about this film.
Very
really
bleak.
lonely, yeah.
And then obviously the school calls the dad and lets him know what's happening. He and on the way, is it on the way to the school? He starts crying.
He parks up at
he parks up at the light, and we actually see him break down on his own in the car.
So sad.
It's very sad. And he drives him home, and Tony Collette sees what's happened and starts breaking down. And
but of course, this is after she's already discovered her headless mother in the attic.
That's right.
With all the lovely Amityville-style flies flapping about.
And the symbol on the wall.
Satanic symbols on the wall. All that brilliance.
And then she starts explaining it to him, and she says, "Oh, my mum's. I think it's my mum. There's a headless body in the attic." And she goes, "Oh, and there's other stuff." I love this line. The father goes, "Oh yeah, along with your mother's headless body." Yeah, of course there is. and he goes up into the attic, and we hear him scream, and comes back down, and
obviously he fully expected it to be bullshit.
And this is after the scene where she's thrown the book which contains all the drawings of Peter into the fire, and it caught her alight, didn't it? And she's explaining this all to him, all of this stuff, and the brilliance of it is he's looking at her just dead in the face, and you completely understand, like, from his point of view, my wife has completely lost it.
Yeah, that's all he's thinking. He's not
like, he's just looking at her like, oh man, what is even happening right now? And she says, like, you need to burn this book. It's going to save Peter, but it's going to take me too, but this is what needs to happen. And then he's just about to do it, and he turns around, and he's just like, no, I can't do this anymore. You're very sick. And she goes, what? No. And throws the thing, and it sets him alight, and it, God.
That when the first time I saw that, I just absolutely died. That is insane. So completely unexpected. Especially,
oh man,
because
no one was expecting that the first time they saw this.
In my tainted memory, I suppose, I just assumed that he must have been the one to throw it in the fire, because he was the one who set on fire. And I assume, okay, it's the person who throws it in.
Me too.
That's why it's such a shock, because you work all that out, and it's still sets.
She was actually the one to throw it in the fire, and he is the one who goes up in flames. So I don't know if I necessarily get that. If there's anything to get,
I don't. The logic isn't spelled out in that at all. I mean, even in my second viewing of it, I can't quite piece that together in anything other than the demon deliberately did that to mess with them. Maybe, possibly. You know what I mean?
It's because she has a purpose for the rest of for what happens next, I suppose. And I suppose they have to maybe it's a trick, because obviously Payman is the god of mischief.
That's very true.
It's a trick to get her to get rid of him, so that everything can go off without a hitch, because he's the only thing that's stopping it. That's going to be able to stop what's happening. Yeah. They have to get rid of Payman. They need to get rid of it, and it works.
Bringing up him being the god of mischief is an absolute shout, by the way. Like that does explain a lot. Maybe he is just, the fact that he is just messing with them. That would really make sense. We see that in the book that she gets out of her mum's stuff, don't we? About invocations, that it says underneath the picture, God of Mischief. That scene is intense.
It also nicely reminds us, that little passage she reads, that he possesses the most vulnerable host, right? Yeah. But what he really covets is a male body. Yeah. So that helped me a lot, because I do remember after the first time watching this film that I did come out feeling as happy as I was at watching such a great film, also a little bit confused.
Oh, so was I.
So yeah, that second viewing really does help, and I think another one wouldn't hurt, to be completely honest.
I will watch this again.
With a theory in mind would always be good. So yeah, really that leads us, right before we jump ahead too much, this is the final sequence, right, where Dad's gone. Dad's dead.
Yep, he burned.
He's dead. We see a very quick shot where Annie has clearly become possessed.
Yeah.
Her face completely changes.
And then we see Peter waking up in bed.
Peter wakes up, discovers his father.
No.
You are missing out, right? I want to describe this scene as an anti-jump scare. It is literally like he wakes up in bed and he sits up Where a lesser film would have directly alerted us to Annie. Hovering in the corner of his room, a lesser film would have made the camera zoom in directly on there. There would have been like really
a massive
tense
crash of music.
It's just a wide shot of the bed, and he gets out of bed, and she's just there. And it I didn't notice it at first. I heard you go, ugh, and then I also went, what is he? And then I looked around and I saw it, and I literally recoiled.
You did.
I physically recoiled. I am so trained, like Pavlovian dog style, into jump scares that they never get me at all, because I know when they're going to happen. Because that is so not, it's not even set up. It made me jump so hard. It's brilliant. And then he
But of course that comes after he's seen Charlie, right? It's the first time we see her after she's died. We see her in her actual physical form.
Oh yeah.
In the corner of his room, because he wakes up to the sound.
Yeah.
And that's where her head falls off and becomes a ball,
I love that. That's honestly one of my favourite bits of the film. I think
Great
it's
transition.
so clever. Like it's so smooth and so shocking and perfect. And then leads straight on to horrible mummy corner.
And he turns around to look, and we see her like fly away, and that's where we know that the movie has gone nuts. She's now able to fly. Possessed.
I'm not gonna lie, as much as I love everything else, I found that a little weird. She like swim flies out of the door.
She's like running sideways but on nothing. I would have much preferred seeing her crawl along the wall than seeing her like kind of run sideways along
odd, right?
nothing.
It was like
it's a little bit comical, might I say, a little bit like
it takes you out of how creepy that scene was up until that point, I think.
And then that's when he discovers the father, and we see her again up in the corner.
Yes.
He looks at the father, and then as he goes to turn round, and she's not there, but he sees and I didn't realise that it was the smiling man at the funeral.
Yeah.
It's
completely butt naked.
He's completely naked, and you can just see him grinning. It's such a creepy image, man.
Yeah, you originally see him at the funeral, right? Through Charlie's eyes almost, when she's viewing the open casket at her grandmother's funeral, he's standing on the other side, grinning at her like a maniac. And when I first saw that, it was like, well, that's got to be explained. Surely.
Yeah.
And thankfully it was.
Yeah. With that guy as well standing there, Ari Aster, I noticed it. So we see him, and he's standing pretty much front on in the door frame, and then like a second goes by, and suddenly he's turned a little bit, but we don't see him do it, and that really, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like he's moved, but we hadn't seen him move, and is he real or not real? And then we don't get a chance to think about it because
then we see
the chase is on. Yeah,
the mother has gone to the corner and she just jumps out, chases him.
Now, did that make you jump?
Not really.
It made my knee twitch, I will admit. It did. Like you say, I am horribly desensitized to most jump scares, but actually I'd only just clocked her.
Yeah, right.
Before she launches. So my knee went...
no, sure.
But that was it.
He goes up into the attic, locks the door, and you can hear a banging sound. He goes,
yes.
And then we get possibly possibly the most disturbing image of the whole film, of her hanging off of the attic door, just like at hyper speed, bashing her head into the set. It is proper brutal
and so old school. I actually got a bit of that Exorcist off that.
I reckon
that
so.
earlier reference I was going to argue with, but thinking about it, I can see it, and especially with that specific movement, it is very old school and just wrong. So wrong.
In the cinema, everyone was like, oh, like when that happened, because you didn't expect it. You kind of expected.
Of course you do. You expect her hammering with her fists or feet or something.
But just
her head.
He's in the attic, and he says, "Oh, it's just a dream. I have to wake myself up." And
there's naked people in there.
And then there's naked people,
which he hasn't noticed somehow.
Yeah.
No.
And then what? And then we see.
Well, it's the outline, isn't it, of the body on the floor.
And then there's a picture of him with his eyes,
and
then you hear
right.
Oh my god! It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, isn't it?
Just before with the Manny, you noticed something that I hadn't noticed before. Is early you see a piano that's been dismantled, and I was always thinking, where did she get the cheese wire? to do what she does to us. It turns out it's not cheese wire. Turns out it's piano wire, if that's a thing.
That's right.
And so now we know.
Yeah, later on we see the piano overturned and opened up and sort of like wrecked. And and just again, there's a lot of attention to detail in this film. It really is appreciated. But we then see the use of the piano wire is the mother levitating up off the ground and just at such a speed going decapitating herself
while she stares into the eyes of her son.
At this point, is it that just makes him jump out of the window?
He sees the naked people, and one of the naked people was the woman that was waving at Charlie when Charlie had just chopped the head off the crow, because she's like, so I really wanted it to be like, hey, like the way. But he just goes like, fuck this, I'm out.
Then he jumps out the window and we see his body land on the floor. And we hear the piano wire like
keeps going,
speed up. We hear it a stop, and then on the ground, and we see the shadow of her body float over, and then the spirit, the light that has represented the ghostly presence and the spirit, sort of like go over his body. Take him over. He has become Payman.
I have to say, just quickly, just so I don't forget, that is another thing. One small thing I wasn't keen on was that light, the representation of that light. I find it quite cheesy. I find it weirdly obvious for a film that is so not obvious.
To use a bit of light to be like, it's transferred now.
It's an orb, like the really
I found it to be like quite a visually original way of presenting a ghost, personally.
I mean, it's not though, is it? Like orbs
that's
a thing.
God, ritual. Really he's summoned.
The way in which it, like, especially in the classroom scenes where it's like a line.
See, I didn't mind that. The blue lights that kind of go
outlines everything.
Yeah, I quite like that. I just mean that white, floaty, quite angelic looking light. I found that really bizarre, especially because it's representing the god of mischief. Why is it this pretty little light?
You make a good point.
It made me think of Navi from Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, like
floating
a fairy
around,
or something.
I wouldn't have made that connection at all, but
like initially, like you say, you see the shadow go over the top. I kind of thought that was it, and I was like, oh, that's cool because it's just a shadow. But then the light comes after it, and I was like, "Oh, really? Like you're so original." And yet it was like this pretty little light for this demon. I just found it odd, but small.
I'm just going to trust that Ari Aster, that's what he wanted to do, and he had reason for it. But I know what you mean. Yeah. And then we see more naked people
as the now possessed Peter walks up the.
We see Annie like that. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that watched this would have been like, oh, that's just stupid. Her levitating headless up into the thing. But I loved that so much.
Really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it is. But at this point, I think you have to be with the absolute batshit level.
If you're not on board, you're not on board.
Well, this is the thing. I know that people would say, like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like, dude, it's a ritual where they're summoning the god of mischief. Like, does it make sense? Like, no. Exactly. Yeah. And because I was thinking the same thing of them being like, oh, like, this doesn't make sense and it's unbelievable. And I was thinking, like, this is going to probably sound really stupid, but it's like, you don't have to really explain, like I guess, like Snow White or something, the fact that, she gets put to sleep if she eats this bad apple. No one's like, well, tell me exactly how the apple, is it poison or is it mystical? I need to know. Like, it's like, just let it happen. It's a ritual. The director, it is what it is. And just appreciate that a headless woman who sliced off her own head is levitating into a treehouse. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't come from nowhere. Like, that would be a legitimate complaint if it came out of nowhere. But it's like, it's well established that there is some paranormal shit going on here. Like, that's been happening for a long time now. You can't suddenly have an issue with it.
No.
Yeah.
Just for that reason. That's odd, And it totally works because she's going to join her lovely little cult in the lovely little tree house.
Side by side with
some
her
great
mother.
Cult imagery, by the way.
I know.
So brilliant.
I love so there's the statue right at the front of the thing, and it's one thing I noticed was that the position it's holding his hand in is sort of like I'd love to be able to accurately describe what I'm doing with my hand. What am I doing with my hand right now?
You're doing the gun sign.
You're doing the gangster gun sign.
It's sort of like but it's pointed angrily like that, and that is like you see Jesus doing the exact same
Oh,
thing in a lot
yeah.
of pictures, in a lot of depictions of Jesus. He's sort of doing that to his side. Can you think of what I mean?
I get what you mean.
It's just something I noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get
I mean, the whole statue was very reminiscent of depictions of Jesus Christ.
But like a twisted demonic version.
Yeah, with a rotten old head on it.
Yeah,
because it had the halo of light around and everything.
And one thing I did not notice that you pointed out, Rob, the first time I watched it, I didn't notice it anyway, was he goes in and the headless bodies are faced away from him towards the edge of the room, and then the camera moves to, as in a close-up where I think he's crowned.
Yeah.
And then it pulls back and we see that they've, like without us seeing them, have just turned around to face him.
This is why it got me, because when I first saw that, I was like, oh, they've turned around, and then suddenly I had the image of them scuttling around, like these headless things, like, like, and just, like, everyone listening, just picture that, like, then just scuttling around, going like, okay, I've got to face him now. Oh.
Yeah, it's a bit,
like,
it's a bit
'cause
much.
it means they still have, like, some kind of life to them, or, like, not life, but
definitely.
Do you know one thing about that final scene, which I noticed both times watching? The score in that scene is amazing. It's like, it feels like heavenly.
Yeah.
It's proper
very
atmospheric.
Churchy.
It feels like transcendent. It really, like, it gave me goosebumps both times. It's really atmospheric. Like, it's an amazing piece of music. I might have to go listen to the score when I get home, actually, just so I can
that's something we've
that.
not really mentioned yet, is the music and the score.
I
definitely made a very big note of, for me, what I love about it is that it, at no point did it really take me out of the film.
No.
It just completely complements the tone of what's going on the entire time. There's no little jingles that, that stick out particularly. It's just that it complements what's going on screen.
A lot of a lot of the scenes in which there are like real horror moments, like in a more typical horror movie, you'd get the standard high pitched strings, whereas in this it's very horn driven, and that you've got that like the really low drony horn of the, but it's done really well. I completely agree. Actually, you don't notice the score in of itself, but it tells you how to feel a lot of the time without it drawing attention to himself. That final scene is one of the only moments in which I really noticed it, which I think is very deliberate, actually.
Yeah.
I think because it really gives this. It feels transcendent. You get that. It gives the feeling of the cult it's all finally come together, and they have summoned Payman, and they are transcending into a new age of worshipping their god. Their god is finally here. It's a brilliant ending.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I don't know, maybe we all just agree, and maybe it's actually obvious, but can you guys kind of summarize what you thought was actually happening there with Payman and everything? What did you take from it? Because for me, you said something that I didn't necessarily agree with earlier. For me, it was that obviously the film is called Hereditary. It's something in the blood of these people, or at least in the souls of these people, or something along those lines. And my take on it was that Charlie was born with this Payman inside her, or in some way intertwined with who she was, which explains why she's not the most average of children.
Right.
So she had it in her from birth, because she does say things throughout the film about how her grandmother wished she'd been a boy. We see at one point that her grandmother made her a doormat with Charles written on it instead of Charlie. Going to such extent to actually call her a boy's name, even though she seemed to be living as a female. So yeah, I feel like Grandmama knew it was in there, knew it was inside her, but knew that Payman wasn't happy with this female form, and so knew that it was going to have to come into Peter in some way. My issue with that is, why wasn't it just in Peter in the first place? Yes, Rob.
I think what you've just said is pretty much right. The only thing that makes me change and brings Peter into it is Annie mentions about how Steve, she was talking to her mum, then not talking to her mum, then talking to her mum, and then Steve gives her a complete no contact. and she says about how she never let her mother, near her first son, near her first child,
So
and that's
she
why.
put it in here?
No, I think that's why I think that was if she would have been around, then she would have groomed Peter to maybe be more accessible to payment, or to, it was definitely to do with the grooming of the grandmother, which is why when she goes, I gave my mum Charlie, she latched onto her. I feel that she and obviously seeing how sad Charlie was when her grandma passed was the way I think she wanted Peter, but she couldn't have him, and he was too old by the time that she was back in the family again. But she was offered to be form an attachment with. And I think she groomed Charlie into becoming Payman, but obviously couldn't because Payman wants a male body. So I think they had to do this kind of weird ritual thing where Charlie dies, but they kind of keep her head and stuff. And then, because I do feel that Charlie, because at the end, Joan, you hear Joan's voice. He says, "Hello, hey Charlie." She says that to Peter. So Charlie is clearly in Peter, but she's also.
Yeah,
I would have
definitely.
Yeah. So I kind of think that I wish they would have explained that how they do that. All it would have had to. It's just you can put a female host inside a host body, and that person can become Payman. But yeah, it's definitely not Peter. It's definitely Charlie. You just have to think, how did they decide to get that in there? But I can't, and I haven't got the time to fully go into that, and I feel that I probably wouldn't get very far anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend as though I really have an answer on it, but the one thing which I have definitely personally taken from it, the one way in which I interpret it is I'm not 100% sure the film makes it clear, which sort of, I have this whole thing about the demon kind of being symbolic of mental illness. I think that is the fact that is made quite a big deal of the whole the family history with mental illness in the group council scene. That's a real question with mental illness in general, isn't it? Is there an actual genetic element which has always been there, or was the trigger which in the environment, which very often there is in people who do suffer from mental illness, was that more important? I think that is something which the film very much knowingly kind of plays with. I mean, I don't know personally whether or not Payman was there in their blood, or whether it was just entirely something which the grandmother character fully has just
I feel
designated for them.
Well, yeah, because in the treehouse there's a picture of her, and she's called Queen. I can't remember her name, but Queen, and so
Queen
it kind of, yeah. But that kind of shows how good the film is that the three of us can't quite agree on what we think happens exactly, and I can't work it out. I mean, I have my theories, but I still love it, and I don't need to know. I mean, I'm sure I could go on YouTube and watch hours of footage.
It's nice to have a little bit of something to think about.
So
definitely,
it's not just depressing.
I think that the fact that it does leave it open forces you to think about it afterwards.
Yeah.
It makes it linger. I mean, I always
Even
think
more
of,
than you would.
I always think of The Shining, the way that ends on a very what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't answer all of your questions at all.
Ambiguous.
Yeah, ambiguous note. It ends on a very ambiguous note, so it forces you to think about it afterwards. It makes it linger with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this film does completely linger with you afterwards. It's one of the only films literally since I was a child that made me look around my room at night. When I was in bed, I remember looking at the corners of my room and just going, oh, oh God.
Yes.
I think we should have the last 2 points of the competition, because I've just decided what the winner's going to get.
Ooh.
Okay,
buddy.
So this is the profit and loss segment of the podcast where we work out if there was I'm not gonna.
Right.
Okay, so
we are all about full transparency on this podcast. I may have seen it while
you
doing my
always
research.
know. Okay, we'll
see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes and see if you do.
AKA if he wins, I win.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna have to come up with some new competitions if you keep finding it out. But
it's quite hard to avoid sometimes.
Yeah, it really
so
is.
What was the budget of this film? Ruby, you can go first.
See, I don't know this.
That's good.
Why don't I try and prepare for these moments?
400 million?
I mean, seriously, I could say that and I wouldn't be any the wiser as to whether that was stupid or not. Okay. First time director, right?
Yes.
Yep.
First time director.
I don't think it was a big studio or anything, was it?
No.
I don't remember any recognisable.
No, I don't think so.
What was House of 1,000 last week? Wasn't that like 7 million?
£7,000?
7 million, right?
Yeah, and this is in dollars.
Yeah.
Oh God. I don't know. $50 million.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Manny?
That's probably terrible, right? I don't know.
I don't think it was that much, but
That is rather a lot.
but the film does not look cheap. Toni Collette is relatively. I mean, she's not necessarily a superstar, but she isn't a nobody either. She's a very.
And so is
established
Gabriel
actor.
Byrne. He's
Exactly,
somebody.
You know. So it's not a huge production, but at the same time, it's definitely not like. I'm gonna go for 25 million.
Okay.
God.
Well,
After
that's
what
an
I
easy
said.
one. Yeah, Manny won that one. It was 10 million.
10 million.
Yeah.
They made this film on 10 million.
Well, they didn't spend much budget on the fly CGI, did they?
No, they didn't.
I didn't want to bring it up, but I'm
Still,
bringing it
this
up.
this film looks amazing. for
It does
10
look
million.
amazing.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what is a normal amount of money to make a film on these days?
Well, it depends.
I know it depends
That is a,
massively.
how
I
long
feel
is it?
around 20
Piece of string.
million. Like, is any of the films that you see in the cinema, there's a good chance they'll be around. No,
So
actually,
50
that's
million is a ridiculous amount of money. to
50
make
million is
that.
a lot. But then you hear about Avatar and it costs like,
Yeah, but that's Avatar, so I get how
or like
that
the
would
Star
be.
Wars films, they're going to cost more than 50
For a
million.
film
but,
like this, I think you're usually looking about 20. Like it depends, 10,
Obviously,
20, 30.
between
Yeah.
10 to 30 usually.
30 would have been a lot for this, but I would believe it 50 is.
Right.
But this
okay.
is why I love
I've
this
gotta
part
learn.
because next week you'll be like, oh, 10 million. I'll be like, mate, it was 80 million.
Yeah, probably.
So we're gonna go with. So it's tied at the moment. So this could ruin
it
it.
is.
What do you think? Do you know what the box office was?
I know what thereabouts.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay. We're gonna go for it and
Do
see
you
what
just
happens.
want to give it to do you just want to let Ruby guess and then just give it to Ruby by default? Because this isn't fair.
It depends. How about if you can get within 20 million?
Yeah,
of it.
maybe if I get close enough. Let's
Yeah,
do
Yeah,
that.
okay.
within 20 million
Okay.
of what you think it got. So you can be.
So you can't say anything, 'cause you know.
No,
Yeah.
I'm zipping up.
Okay, alright. Get in the zone, Ruby. What did it cost to make again? 10 million.
10 million, yeah.
I mean, it was.
Do you want a little hint?
No, I don't. I'm trying to be proper here.
Is she gonna get it?
What did House of 1,000 make again? Just so I'm giving me some.
It
line of
made about
reference.
17 million. 16.8 million. I think it made.
16 million. This would have made more than that easily. Do you know what? I'm going to go with my original answer and say 50 million. No, sticking with it. 50 million. That's my answer.
Okay. It actually made 79.3 million at box office. Yeah, which is
it was very successful.
very, very successful.
Mate, I was like,
Yeah, you were 30 out. So Manny,
This is the most successful A24 release so far. They really made a fair bit on this. I really hope it means that Ari Aster gets a lot of creative control
I
and
hope
freedom
so.
in future.
he deserves it.
he
He
does.
really does.
Well done,
I can't
Ari Aster.
believe this is his first film. It absolutely reeks of a really advanced and experienced filmmaker.
Yeah,
Nuts.
definitely.
Okay, so your prize is to let everyone know what episode 3 is going to be.
I've forgotten, mate.
That's why. I mean, I did tell you this, but anyway, and we were very excited about it, but you know, whatever. I luckily have queued it up for you, so you can see
I
it.
remember.
Yeah, but
Okay.
so what we did is I decided to put a poll out on Twitter, and I was amazed with the response we got. We got 48 votes on this.
That's cool.
And we had just put out our 14-minute long intro episode.
Thanks,
so
guys.
thank you very much, guys. We got 8 I don't know if you need to go into this. It did quite well, and we're happy with it.
We're really blown away by the response,
yeah.
considering the fact that we've never done anything like this before.
So thank you very much for everyone on that one. The 4 choices we're going to go for a hashtag not quite horror movie for episode 3. It was going to be The Road, which would have been my choice. Donnie Darko, Pan's Labyrinth, or Hobo with a Shotgun.
All very strong choices.
Yes. It was very close. There was 1 vote in it. Manny, would you like to reveal what film we'll be doing for next episode?
The film we will be doing next episode is the modern masterpiece dark fairy tale that is Pan's Bloody Labyrinth.
Yes.
Oh man, Guillermo del Toro, the boy himself. The legend.
I'm very
the
excited.
Visionary.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Pan's Labyrinth
And
is...
perfect for the genre of not quite horror as well. It's a very good shout.
This is going to make some interesting discussion because I always would have said that overall that's a horror film.
Controversial.
Oh, some beans will be eaten.
Okay, so we're nearly at the end there. I think the only thing really we left to do is to give our own ratings, what we reckoned of Hereditary. So to start off, Rob, what did you reckon?
I'm going to give it... So I gave Thingy House of Hounds Causes at 8.5. I'm going to give this a 9.
9 decapitated heads.
Yeah, 9
9 decapitated bird heads.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 because I honestly don't... We're going to struggle to find a film like this for a very long
So
time.
you gave that quite a bit more than you gave House of a Thousand.
A 0.5 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also because it came out this year when, it's unexpected to have something this good. I think this will be a classic. I think in 20, 30 years' time, people will be talking about... All the cool kids who watch horror in 30 years' time will be like, have you seen Hereditary? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Manny?
You know something, man? Like, I have to give this a 9.5.
Ooh.
I really do. This is like I've said, if the main like criteria for rating a horror movie is how much it scared you, this is the scariest film I've seen. Maybe this decade. Maybe. I would honestly... It's up there at least. It's within the top 3 happily. It is a proper horror film done to proper standards. It's so well made. It gives you so much to think about, and it scared the shit out of me when I first watched it. Yeah, it's a 9.5, mate. Standard.
Well, there's some big scores to contend with. I also love this film, as you've probably gathered. I just thought it was bloody brilliant. The acting was fantastic. The story was wonderful. It really did that whole drama horror thing perfectly. The horror imagery itself, like, I feel really tapped into that, some of that deep rooted childhood stuff, like the corner thing with Annie in the corner. Like, I still have moments where I'm in bed late at night after watching way too many scary movies, and it's, looking in the corner of your room and double checking, nothing's there. So it really taps into some deep rooted stuff, which is great. And it just leaves me feeling really quite bowled over. Like, I'm still recovering.
Yeah.
To be honest, it makes me cry more than it makes me afraid. But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
All of that together, as well as some of the little tiny issues I had with, like, the way that the light worked and that weird running on thin air stuff that really isn't a big deal, but just to be, pedantic, I'm going to give it an 8.5.
Alright.
Okay, so me and you have swapped for...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I have to go lower than House of a Thousand because that is one of my dearest loves. But yeah, 8.5. I'm happy with that.
This has already become, like, just on this second viewing, I was thinking to myself, just after, I was like, this is one of my favourite horror films ever. Like, for me personally, like, it has to be. Like, there aren't many films that have scared me this much past childhood. Like, really. It does it for me. It really does it for me.
So yeah, to sum up, go watch Hereditary.
Yep.
Or go watch it again.
If you haven't watched it now, I'm sorry.
It's ruined for you, but yeah.
They should definitely watch it again and again. It requires really
It does.
watching.
So that is a wrap on Hereditary. We have done it. That was a tough one because I really wanted to try and make this episode a bit shorter than last time, because last time our episode was as long as the film.
Yeah.
This time it's not. Luckily, we've still got another half an hour, but we're not far off.
That would be impressive.
But no, I'm glad we did that one. That's really good. I think
was a lot of fun.
It was. I think me and Manny were talking. We need to do a film that we don't like, so we're going to hopefully do that in a couple of episodes' time, so you can see what we're like.
That's for sure.
No, we all love that one. So yeah, do we want to just wrap up with our social media just to let everyone know? Okay, so I've lost the sheet, but I'm just going to go for it. So you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Let's Watch Horror. Ruby, what are we?
Let's Watch Horror Pod.
Okay, on Instagram. On Facebook, we are at Let's Watch Horror Podcast. On Twitter, we are at Watch Horror Pod, and Twitter's been a lot of fun. Yeah. That's really good. We're getting quite a few followers on there. I'm liking that. And just say thanks to Tommy Musgrove for our lovely artwork once again.
Yeah, so that's about everything, guys.
Straight
Thanks
up.
for joining us. Hopefully see you again next week.
See you later, mate.
See you later.
Bye.
Goodbye.